Born in 1883, Saskatoon was incorporated as a city 23 years later. Today, its more than 110,000 citizens enjoy life in a modern, vital, and rapidly expanding city, stretching along the banks of the South Saskatchewan River. Ideally located to serve the needs of the fast-growing North Saskatchewan region, it is on the border where the vast prairie country merges with the forest area stretching north to the Arctic. Young in years, Saskatchewan, celebrating its 60th anniversary of Confederation with Canada, places heavy emphasis on youth. Saskatoon, optimistic about its future in the growth of the province, makes every effort to ensure that its young people will find the city a wonderful place in which to grow up. Across the river from downtown Saskatoon, the University of Saskatchewan stands as a symbol of the province's faith in its future. Founded in 1909 with 5 teachers and 70 students, it has today a faculty in excess of 500 and a student body of more than 8,000. While the national university enrollment has doubled in the past 10 years, Saskatchewan's has tripled. Emphasis is placed on the humanities, with exacting standards in the pure and applied sciences. The growth of the university has brought to Saskatoon the reputation of being the center of higher learning in the wheat province. Just 10 miles to the east is one of the world's largest deposits of potash. 60 miles south is the gigantic South Saskatchewan Dam project. Products worth more than $140 million annually pour from the city's 300 manufacturing plants. Saskatoon also epitomizes the traditional friendliness of the West. Now let us return to that first Monday in March. Heading the Brier parade was this old steam-powered tractor from the Western Development Museum, recalling the early days of the wheat-growing province. The focal point was the Saskatoon Arena. Here, curlers who would be playing in their first Canadian Curling Championship joined with veteran Brier competitors in getting out of the sub-zero prairie temperatures. Curling fans lined up for the first draw, as did curlers and officials who had known the thrill of other Brier playdowns. The sound of the Saskatoon Police Pipe Band heralded the appearance of Canada's top curlers. These were the teams who, after long weeks of tough competition, had won the right to represent their province in the national playdowns. Alex Gilliland, co-chairman of the Saskatoon Brier Committee, made the opening remarks. Mayor E.J. Cole extended the hospitality of the city, and with Saskatchewan celebrating its Diamond Jubilee, Lieutenant Governor R.L. Hainbidge welcomed everyone to the province. Then he walked down the ice to hold the broom for Brier trustee, the Honorable Eric Willis. The sweepers try hard, but the opening rock is light. It would not be the last. Then the handshakes and the tossing of coins. 100 hours from this moment, a new champion would be crowned. Let's look now at some of the highlights of the 1965 Canadian Curling Championship. In the opening draw, Ron Franklin's entry from Nova Scotia found themselves in a tight battle with Doug Cameron's veteran crew from PEI. Here in the 8th, they're tied 3-all as Franklin's first stone comes in to push PEI back and lay 1. With last rock and 4 stones in the house, Cameron is looking for a big end. This is Doug's 6th Brier, and he's given a good chance to win it all. His outturn pushes the Nova Scotia shot rock back, leaving the Islanders lying 2. This is the first trip to the Canadian Curling Championships for Franklin's Halifax rink, and they're destined to pull one of the week's biggest upsets. But not today. The Maritime skip is narrow, misses the freeze, leaves PEI lying 2. Cameron has lots of room left in the house. The 31-year-old accountant from Charlottetown is after 3 big points. And he gets them drawing to the 4-foot. Prince Edward Island counts 3 to go ahead 6-3 after 8. They win the game 16-4. On the next sheet was the youthful West Coast entry skipped by Jack Arnott. The BC rink was not expected to retain the tankard Lyle Dagg's powerful crew had won the year before. In their first draw, they'd been trailing Bill Tracy's Quebec rink all the way. Here in the 12th end, they're behind 9-6. But when the Quebec skip misses a double, BC gets a chance to tie the game. British Columbia was the youngest rink at Saskatoon with an average age of 23. Arnott's last rock draws in, and British Columbia count 3 to tie the game and force the first extra end game in the 1965 Canadian Curling Championship. With Skip's rocks to come, BC's short rock is cutting the button. Arnott wants another guard to protect that all-important single point. His front end watched closely. And from here it looks just about perfect. But he came over a little too far and left a narrow port. Wily Bill Tracy discusses the possibility with third Doug Stewart. They decide to go for it. It's a tough shot on a tricky side sheet, but the skip from Bagotville throws a perfect stone. Gets a piece of the BC rock, moves it out, and rolls to bite the 12-foot. Quebec lies 1. Arnott wants to come through the same port, or possibly raise one of his short guards. But he's wide, wicks off 2 stones, and comes up short. Tracy doesn't bother with his last rock. Quebec wins its first game 10-9 in 13 ends. The second day of the Brier brought together the Alberta entry, skipped by Nick Lashuk, and the Harold Worth rink from the host city, Saskatoon. On the opening day, Lashuk had dropped his first game to Ontario, while Worth had been soundly beaten by the sharp-shooting Bronstein crew from Manitoba. This, then, was a crucial game for these 2 rinks. A win was necessary to stay in serious contention for the title. In this 11th end, Saskatchewan is leading 7-5 and lies 3 as Worth delivers his last rock. It comes in nicely, and now Saskatchewan lies 4. Slim Otterson gives his skip the ice for the out-turn draw. Lashuk has plenty of room in the house and draws to the edge of the button. Alberta counts 1. After 11 ends, Saskatchewan 7, Alberta 6. With 3 rocks to come in the 12th end, Alberta is shot. The Saskatoon Brier is Harold Worth's 3rd try for the big win. And with last rock coming home, he goes for the hit and roll. One of Canada's top curlers, he makes no mistake. And now Saskatchewan lies 2. Lashuk has just 1 shot that will help him. An out-turn draw to the edge of the 4-foot behind the short guard. He wants to just shave the guard, but he's wide. Draws to the 8-foot for shot, but is wide open. 6 long years have passed since northern Saskatchewan has been able to break the South's stranglehold and make it to the Brier. And now they get past one of their toughest opponents. Worth draws in to count 1 and defeat Alberta 8-6. On the evening of the 3rd day of curling, the BC rink met the Newfoundland entry from St. John's, skipped by George McCharles. Here in the 6th end, Newfoundland was leading 6-3 and lying 2. McCharles is narrow with his first rock and raises a BC stone into the house. However, he is still lying 2. Jack Arnott and crew decide a draw to the 4-foot might do the trick. Arnott delivers the in-turn. It looks good. Coming to rest just behind the button. Skip McCharles, who serves with the RCMP, takes careful aim. The curling Mountie makes no mistake. Removes BC's shot rock and stays to count 3. Newfoundland goes ahead 9-3 and wins the game 16-9. By Thursday morning, only Terry Braunstein's strong Manitoba entry was unbeaten. But right at his heels, with only one loss, was Saskatchewan, Northern Ontario, and Bill Tracy of Quebec, who had lost to Harold Worth on the third draw. Now in the ninth end, Quebec is shot as Tracy just nudges a Manitoba stone, adding protection to his shot rock. Braunstein is going for a double takeout. In 1958, at the age of 18, Terry nearly won the Tankard, losing out to Matt Baldwin in a playoff. Now the young Manitoba skip is wide, raises the Quebec second stone onto the shot rock. Quebec still lies 1. Trailing Manitoba 5-3 at this point, Tracy would like to steal an end. He wants to freeze to his shot stone. Carefully watched by Woody Wood and Earl Carson, the stone comes in and just edges the shot rock. Quebec lies 2. The call now is for Braunstein to come in with an out turn and push both Quebec rocks back. It's a tough shot, but one the Manitoba skip has made often this week. But again, he's wide. Hits on the wrong side, punches one rock out, but rolls a little too far. Quebec picks up 1, but Manitoba went on to win 7-5. In the afternoon, Manitoba defeated Alberta 12-7. And when the teams paraded for the evening draw and the Braunstein Rink's third game of the day, the big question was, could Terry and his teammates withstand the pressure? To discuss the question of pressure, we asked Ernie Richardson to give his views.
Right now, the pressure is certainly on Terry and his boys, and he's got 3 tough games ahead of him. If he loses one game and Harold Worth goes ahead and wins the rest of his games, there's going to be a playoff, and then it's just one game to decide the championship. So there certainly is the pressure. There's always the pressures on the team that's leading. We won 6 straight in Fort William, and we'd beaten the best teams in the Spiel, and we thought we could go ahead and win 10 straight, but Jake Edwards and his boys from Ontario come up and upset us, and we won the thing 9-1, but it's very difficult to go through 10-0 nowadays, Frank.
Call it pressure or just better curling. But after 4 ends, Northern Ontario led 3-1. Here in the 5th end, Northern Ontario is shot, but the young Manitoba skip has last rock. He wants those 2 stones out of there. It's a fine shot, and now Manitoba lies 3. Third, Frank Buterac gives the ice. Paulie Blank needs a big shot here. And he gets one, raising Manitoba's shot rock to stay and lie 1. Now it's pressure time for Braunstein. He'll count 4 if he can remove the Northern Ontario rock and stay. But he's wide, hits and rolls out himself. The result is close enough for a measure. Manitoba gets the nod for a single point. After 5 ends, it's Northern Ontario 3, Manitoba 2. Now in the 6th, Northern Ontario is shot behind a long guard. Braunstein wants to push it back and stay. He's a shade wide. He moves it, but rolls on past. This presents no problem to Paulie Blank. A takeout and roll leaves him lying 2 and well separated. The Manitoba skip elects to draw to the shot rock. Now there can be little doubt that pressure is getting to Braunstein. He's not only narrow, but pounds light. The house is wide open for the Northern Ontario skip to draw into for 3. Heavy sweeping brings his last rock into the house. They pick up 3 big points and go ahead 6-2 after 6 ends. Now in the 7th, Northern Ontario is shot. Bronstein wants to raise his second stone onto Polyblank's shot rock. He does, and now Manitoba lies 4. Timeout now for a serious discussion. They decide to go for 2. But Polyblank hits it dead on to stay for second stone. Manitoba now has a chance for 4 points. But Bronstein raises the Northern Ontario rock onto one of his own and winds up with 3. After 7 ends, Northern Ontario 6, Manitoba 5. Northern Ontario picked up 2 in the 8th, and now in the 9th, Manitoba is shot behind a long guard. Polyblank quickly removes it. Northern Ontario has second stone biting at the back behind Manitoba's shot rock. Bronstein tries for a draw behind a short guard, but his weight is gone. He's heavy and slides through the house. Polyblank is going for a hit and roll. He gets it, but rolls out himself. Strategy says blank the end, and this is Bronstein's plan. Get a piece of the shot stone and roll out, keeping last rock for a big end. But Terry can't buy a shot at this point. A clean miss. Polyblank counts 1 and goes ahead 9-5. Northern Ontario gets 3 more in the 10th and defeat Manitoba 12-6. For the second year in a row, the big man from Kirkland Lake upsets the favorite and sets the scene for a possible playoff. And while Manitoba was dropping its first game to Northern Ontario, Brier history was being repeated on the next sheet of ice. Back in 1955 at the Regina Brier, the Ontario entry was skipped by Andy Grant of Toronto. He won the longest game in modern Brier history, defeating New Brunswick 14-12 in 14 ends. Throwing lead stones on his rink was his 21-year-old son, Ray. Now, in 1965, Ray Grant skipped the Ontario rink from Union. He'd been having his troubles here at the 36 Playdowns, and now in the 9th draw, he met up with Dr. Peter Lyon's rink from Moncton, New Brunswick. The lead changed hands 4 times. They tied the score 4 times, including the 12th end, when New Brunswick made it 10-all. They blanked the 13th, and now in the 14th end, Dr. Lyons draws his last rock in for shot. Ray Grant calls for draw ice. One can only guess at his thoughts as he delivers his last rock. He talks to his sweepers as the stone eases toward the house. Across the 12-foot, the 8, into the back of the 4-foot to stop just past the butt. It's a unique moment as history repeats for Ray Grant. Ontario defeats New Brunswick 11-10 in 14 ends. When Manitoba bowed to Northern Ontario, the scene appeared set for a 2-way playoff between Manitoba and Harold Worth's crew from Saskatchewan. Friday morning, he met Ron Franklin's Nova Scotia rink. It was a close game all the way, but going into the 11th end, Saskatchewan had gone ahead 6-4. The hometown audience was content. All Worth had to do now was get past the fading PEI rink in the afternoon, and then Saskatchewan would beat Manitoba in an evening playoff game. It promised to be an exciting wind-up to the 1965 Playdowns. But as in any sport, curling has its moments of tragedy as well as triumph. Nova Scotia is lying 2 as Worth throws his last rock. He hits on the wrong side and rolls out. The Maritimers lie 1. Suddenly it became apparent that Nova Scotia was not out of the game yet. With his last stone, Ron Franklin drew to the 8-foot to count 2. After 11 ends, the score was tied 6-all. With Skip's rocks to come in the 12th, Saskatchewan is shot in a 12-foot at about 4 o'clock. Franklin's first stone was narrow, wicked off a guard and rolled wide. Worth, one of the game's finest performers, didn't want anything laying around for Franklin to hide behind or raise. He goes for the Maritime rock and punches it through the house. He gets a good roll for protection on his shot rock and keeps the front open. It is now Franklin's intention to draw to the Saskatchewan shot rock. But he hits a run in the ice and falls back. He nearly slides too far. But now Nova Scotia is shot. What will Worth do? Let him tell you.
Well, when I went to play the shot, I was going to play a takeout, and in that particular spot, the ice was falling back, and we decided maybe we should throw the draw shot in there, and I just came a little heavy, that's all. And the rock was on at one time, slipped off, and went on by, and just into the back wing, which is too far.
Now all that stood between Manitoba and the championship was British Columbia. BC skip Jack Arnott borrowed Polly Blank's cap and king-size broom in a light-hearted attempt to stop Manitoba, and it seemed to work. After 6 ends, it was all tied up, 3-3. Here in the 7th, Manitoba is lying 2 as Bronstein delivers. He wants a guard. It slides a shade too far, but Manitoba still lies 2. Arnott wants to freeze to the shot rock. It's just inches heavy for the freeze, but BC pushes Manitoba back to lie 1. Conference time is called. Manitoba decides on the same shot. They're content to play it safe and wait for the big end. Bronstein comes in to push British Columbia back and lie 1. BC third Terry Miller suggests repetition might not be a bad idea at this point. Arnott agrees. He's happy to score single points and keep Manitoba from running away. He's narrow, but luck is with him. A rub throws him onto the shot rock. BC stays to count 1. They go ahead 4-3 after 7 ends. But trouble is not far away for the West Coast entry. Arnott misses a double takeout, leaving Manitoba lying 4. This is what Bronstein and company have been waiting for. It's been the Manitoba story throughout the 65 Brier. Keep the game close, then suddenly break out with a big 4 or 5 ender. Good sweeping by lead Ray Turnbull and Ron Bronstein brings Terry's rock to bite the 12-foot and lay 5. Jack Arnott still has a good chance to reduce the count. But the pressure gets to him now. His last stone hangs up on the Manitoba biter. With a comfortable 5 in the house, Terry Bronstein elects to throw his last rock away. He counts 5 and goes ahead 8-4. They win the game 11-6 and the Canadian Curling Championship with 9 wins, 1 loss. The Saskatoon Boys Pipe Band leads the winners and runners-up down the ice for the closing ceremonies and presentation of awards. The 36 playdowns were over. Canada's Curling Championship returns to Manitoba. David M. Stewart of MacDonald Tobacco Incorporated presents the Brier tankard to the winning skip. To the second place Saskatchewan rink skipped by Harold Worth, prizes are awarded by DCA past president Art Skinner. Congratulations go to Ray Turnbull, Don Duguid, and Terry and Ron Bronstein from Manitoba.